大家好. Good morning or good afternoon, depending what time you're watching this video. My name is Gavin Scott, and I'm from Gate English Training School in Weihai. I'm here in this series of videos to teach you a little bit about the IELTS exam. And in this video specifically, I'm here to talk to you about the speaking test. So this will be a series of 10 lessons about the speaking test and how to improve your score for the IELTS exam. So if you have any questions that you want to ask me or learn about the test in the future, you can contact my wife, Tansy, Jiang Lao Shi, and we'll give you the contact information again at the end of the video. Now, first of all, let me introduce myself. Since this is our first video together, I think it'd be good for you to know a little bit about me. I am from Australia, from the city of Sydney. I am 39 years old, and I originally studied a Bachelor of Business, majoring in marketing. But that was about 20 years ago. I'm currently back at university, studying my Masters of Teaching at Newcastle University in Australia. I've been teaching English since 2004, and most of that has been in China, but I have also worked in Italy and the UK. Within China, I have worked in the city of Changchun in Jilin province in the north, as well as spending about 5 years in Beijing and more than 6 years in Weihai. I have been an IELTS teacher since 2011, and about that time I also started Gate Education in Weihai with my wife. In terms of the places I've worked in a lot of different schools. When I was in Italy, I worked in Lord Byron College. And when I was in the UK, I spent time in a few summer schools, but one particular time I spent was in Edinburgh School of English. And then I've been in a couple of universities in China, including Zhongyang Caijing Daxue, the Central University of Finance and Economics in Beijing, as well as Shandong University in Weihai campus, my first couple of years when I moved to Weihai. I was an IELTS examiner in 2010 for a year, and since 2011, like I said, I have been running Gate English School in Weihai. Outside of my teaching, like many Australians, I love to do barbecues. This is me doing my barbecues for my students in Weihai a few years ago. And you know, it's a common thing in Australia to sit around in summer, in the sun, cooking meat, having some drinks, particularly beer, and chatting with our friends. I also love many different sports. I particularly like rugby league. Now, if you don't know the sport of rugby league, well, I recommend that you go online and look it up. It's a very tough sport. Most Australians look at rugby league and then see things like soccer or American football and think, that's a soft sport. I also love soccer, cricket, golf, and swimming in Weihai. When it's warm enough, I will swim almost every morning in the sea there. I love music. My favorite kind of music is ska music. If you don't know what ska music is, again, go online, look it up. And then, you know, maybe you like it, maybe you don't. But the whole thing is we should always be trying to listen to new music, read new books, try different things to, you know, enjoy our life more. I love reading fantasy fiction, but I read lots of different kinds of books, but fantasy fiction is my favorite kind of book, and I usually read a novel on my iReader every night before I go to bed. I love traveling, and I've been to 38 countries in my time. If you want to hear a video about that, please ask me about that. I've got lots of interesting stories about my travels. I also love beer, both drinking beer and making beer, and this logo here is from a time me and my friends made beer in Weihai in my own kitchen. We made about 20 batches of beer over a couple of years, and you know, it came out pretty good. I also love drinking beer. Every time I travel, I love trying the beer in different countries and seeing which beers I like best. I think the best beers in the world come from Belgium, Bielischer, but I love all different kinds of beers, particularly IPAs, which are Indian Pale Ales. Anyway, let's move on. Sorry if I'm speaking a little bit too quickly. Now, I believe in this video we are going to be putting Chinese subtitles at the bottom of the screen for you. Now, of course, if you find me speaking too quickly, then yes, of course, you probably need to use those subtitles. However, I hope that for people looking to get scores of 6, 6.5, or 7, you really shouldn't need the subtitles to understand what I'm saying. So please try not to look at them and practice your listening. So the IELTS test. Today's lesson is just an introduction to the IELTS speaking test. And again, for some of you, this will be quite easy, especially if you've taken the test a few times before. But for those of you who have never taken the test before, I think this will be a very useful video for you. Now, even if you have taken the test before, you'll still learn a few things from watching this video. Now, first of all, 3 parts to the IELTS test. There is part 1, which actually has a few parts. The first part, it would be the intro and ID check, where they kind of read a speech and then they, check who you are. Then there is one of the common topics which they will ask one of these topics every time, which is home, hometown, and what do you do? Now, for most students here, it's normally about your studies, but that could also be your studies or work. They will then ask you 1 or 2 other general topics. Could be any number of topics, and we'll have a look at that in a future lesson about some of the common kind of topics you might come across in the IELTS test. Part 2 is a 2-minute speech where you'll be given 1 minute to think and then expected to speak for 2 minutes on a particular topic. And again, this is something we will discuss in a future video if you need to focus and improve that area of your speaking. Finally, in part 3, we have the questions on the same topic as part 2, but the questions are much more difficult at this point. And really, this is where you're going to get the good scores. Parts 1 and 2 might get you from 5 to 5.5 to 6, but to really get the 6.5s, the 7s and higher, you need to do really well in part 3. In terms of the timing, the whole test is actually about 14 minutes after the timer starts, but there is a small speech at the beginning that the examiner will deliver. So part 1 will be 5 minutes, part 2 will be 4 minutes, which of course includes 2 minutes of you speaking, 1 minute of thinking time, and about 30 to 50 seconds for the IELTS examiner to read all of their script for you. Part 3 can take up to 5 minutes. When I say up to 5 minutes for like parts 1 and 3, of course, if it gets to 4 minutes 40, they won't have time to ask you another question, so they will stop there. The whole interview can take up to and no longer than 15 minutes. That means every 20 minutes, the IELTS examiner will have 15 minutes for you and then 5 minutes to write down scores and double check what mark they are going to give you. And have a rest if they need it in that time. Okay, at the beginning of the test, before you come into the room, your local staff, whether that's in China or any country, they will already have checked your ID and all your paperwork and have sent you to the room where the IELTS examiner would be waiting. Now, usually there will be a chair out the front where you will sit and wait, but sometimes the examiner will be there waiting for you. They will usually be holding the tape recorder in their hand. They will record the entire speaking test, and this is for a number of reasons. First of all, it's so that if you want to get your test double marked because you weren't happy with your score and you think you did better, you can pay to have some senior examiner double check your mark. Secondly, the senior examiners will double check some of our tests. I think it's 10%. They will just randomly listen to our tests and make sure we are doing a good job. Thirdly, during that 5 minutes extra we have before the next student comes in, we'll listen to that tape recorder and double check, did we give the right score? Or if we're not sure, oh, is their grammar a 6 or a 7? Let me listen again. So we can go back and listen to that as well. Then what they will do is they will read from a speech on a piece of paper. It will start with, this is the speaking module for the International English Language Testing System. conducted on, they will then say the date, the place, your full name as per your ID, and their own name. All of that is just so that that information is on the tape recorder and that we check that it matches the sheet. So you don't need to worry about that speech. But some students, the first time you take the test, that can confuse people. You hear this person speaking very quickly. This is the International English Language Testing System conducted on the 27th of July, 2018. The examiner's name is Gavin Scott. And if you're new and you've not taken the test before, what will happen will be like, what? Slow down, that's too fast. I don't understand, ting-ba-dong, ah. And it can make some people a little bit nervous at the beginning, but don't worry. That's just for the tape recorder, and if a senior examiner is marking it, they know who they are listening to. So don't worry about that speech. After that speech, they will have a little clock on the table and they will start the timer. So that whole thing might take about 30 to 40 seconds at the beginning. After they start the timer, the first question they will ask you is, can you tell me your full name, please? So how would you answer that question? Now, if you're not sure, what your answer should be is the same name as your ID. So for my name, I would say my full name is Gavin Stuart Scott, because that is the name on my ID card or on my passport. So no other name at this point, because again, that is just to check that you are the same person as our piece of paper tells you. After that, they will usually say, what should I call you? And again, this is where you can say your preferred name. And you say, oh, you can call me Gavin, or you can call me Xiaobai if you have a nickname. Whatever you feel comfortable with. That's the main thing. Whatever name you want and that you feel comfortable with. If you're not comfortable with an English name, you can use your Chinese name or even your Chinese nickname. I know a lot of Chinese people have a double nickname like Shan Shan. So that would be fine to use that. And I know some of you right now are laughing. Shan Shan, he said the wrong pronunciation. Funny. Anyway, so then they'll ask where you're from if they are not going to choose the topic of your hometown in the next section. Now, if they're going to talk about your home or your studies, then they will say that question. Otherwise, they will just go on to that topic next. They will also check your ID. Don't worry about this. This is normally the second check. You've already been checked by the local staff. And this is just like a second level of security. So don't worry about that. Don't feel nervous. They're not going to stop the test right then and there. They used to actually do that, but I think these days, if they are concerned, they would wait to the very end of the test. So you'll still have the whole test, no matter what happens. They're not going to stop the test or anything because you've changed your appearance from your ID. Okay. In terms of the scoring of the test, we have the four main areas that they are going to write the score from 0 to 9. Of course, to get 0, basically, you have to say nothing to get 0. The four areas are fluency, grammar, lexical range, which is basically vocabulary, and pronunciation. Now, when we talk about fluency, of course, that's just how quickly you speak, how naturally you speak, not stopping too much, and that you can answer all of the questions in the topic quite easily. And it's probably the most important thing. Fluency is where everything else comes together. If you have good grammar, good vocabulary, good pronunciation, that will be shown by having good fluency. Grammar and vocabulary are basically about two things. The accuracy, meaning how many mistakes have you made, and the range, meaning have you used a wide range of grammar and vocabulary. Now, these two things are balanced out because you can have perfect English by using lots of very simple sentences. I like chocolate. I go to school. I am 39. If you use very simple sentences, you might make no grammar mistakes, but you're not going to get a very high score because it's all very simple. So we need a range of different grammar structures. But again, don't think too much about grammar. If you speak a lot, you'll use lots of different grammar structures without even thinking. Same thing with vocabulary. We want to know that you can use the correct vocabulary to answer this question and that you use a range of vocabulary on different topics. The biggest mistake for vocabulary is using complicated words which are not the normal words to use in this situation. Finally, we have pronunciation. And I always tell my students, don't worry about pronunciation. There's nothing you can do in the short term to fix your pronunciation. So there's no point stressing about it. The best thing you can do is speak as fluently as possible. If you speak quickly and fluently, your pronunciation score will be much higher. If you do have pronunciation problems, you can't fix them like that. You need time. The best way to fix pronunciation is actually to listen to lots of native English speakers. Watch movies, watch TV shows, listen to podcasts and presentation videos. The more you do that, the better your pronunciation will get. So don't worry too much about pronunciation. If you do have a phonetic problem, for example, you can't say the zh sound in usually. A lot of you would say usually. Now, if that's your only pronunciation mistake, it's not going to drop your score down to a 4. You might go from like a 9 down to a 6 or 7, but 1 or 2 little phonetic pronunciation problems is not going to affect your score a lot. What's most important is that we can understand you. If I can understand everything you say very clearly and easily, you're getting a very decent score of 6 or 7. So that's more important, that we can understand you. Okay, now we're going to spend the rest of this video looking at some common mistakes that people make during the IELTS speaking test. If I remember any of them, ones that I've forgotten that I haven't included today, I might put them in later videos. One of the first common mistakes that people make is the very, 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 very first question. And people say some strange things. So when they ask you that question, can you tell me your full name, please? A lot of students go, full name, full name, full name, full name, full name. Full name? Well, first of all, that's not a question. You can't go, full name? And think that's a question. People do that all the time. If you don't know what full name means, you can ask, I'm sorry, what does full name mean? I really hope you don't ask that question, especially after watching this video, because you should know. The second thing people say is, my Chinese name or my English name? Now, first of all, within the test, of course, we need to know your Chinese name because that's what we are looking at on your ID. Now, and of course, in that situation, you would say your full name. My full name is Jiang Wenjing. It's my wife's name. My full name is Gavin Stewart Scott. Now, even outside of the IELTS test, I find this is a really weird question. I've met Chinese people at a bar or in my English class, and they've come in. I'm like, hey, I'm Gavin. How are you? What's your name? My Chinese name or my English name? I'm like, your French name if you have one. I don't care. If you want to use a Japanese name, a German name, an Italian name, it doesn't matter. What matters is it's your name. I will call you what you want me to call you. If you say my name is Bob, hello, Bob. If you say my name is Shan Shan, I will say, hi, Shan Shan, nice to meet you. If you say my name is Snow White, I'll call you Snow White. I might laugh at you, but I'll call you Snow White. And that's not actually a joke. I have had a student many, many years ago called Snow White. And she was like a 40-year-old businesswoman. So yes, it's your name. You tell me what you would like me to call you, and that is fine. Okay, another mistake is not using full grammar sentences. And sometimes this is because your English is just very bad and you can't make sentences. But I think most of the time it's because you are nervous. And at the beginning of the IELTS test, that's normal, that's common. A lot of students are nervous. It's normal to be nervous at the beginning of the test. So in this situation, when people say, where is your hometown? And you're very nervous, you might go, Qingdao. And that's fine, you know. I mean, the first question doesn't really matter at the beginning of the test, but you've got to get over your nerves quickly. So you need to be saying, oh, my hometown is Qingdao. if you're taking the IELTS test in Beijing, you might add some more information. My hometown is Qingdao, which is on the east coast of China. But, full sentence answers. So many students, even students with amazing English, still do this at the beginning of the test, especially the first 3 or 4 questions. So the sooner you start with good grammar sentences, the better your score will be at the end. Another very big problem, and this depends on probably where you've been studying, is to use memorized answers. Now, generally, the problem with memorized answers is that you don't deliver them naturally, and secondly, they often don't match the question perfectly, because maybe the question's a little bit different to the one you've memorized. Also, the IELTS examiners can usually tell, in fact, not just the examiners, any native English speaker knows when a student has used a badly memorized answer. The most common one we hear all the time is, "How are you?" "I'm fine, thank you. And you?" That robotic delivery, it's not natural. Your pronunciation score will go down. Your fluency score will go down. It's just not good. For this question, do you live in a house or an apartment? A common thing that students do here is this kind of answer. "I live in an apartment with my family. I live there with my mother and my father. I love them very much." Now, first of all, you're going off topic there. We didn't ask you about your family. Secondly, you sound like a 3-year-old child, and we just will be laughing at you on the inside. We'll be like, "Oh, what an idiot." But we'll be doing this. All the time, we'll be looking, maybe smiling, trying not to laugh at your silly answers. But then we'll go and tell our friends about them after. "Oh, this student said that stupid thing that they do with the heart about loving their family very much." "Or they 5? "No, they were 23. So we will joke about your silly answers with other teachers and other examiners. It's one of the highlights of the day. So again, just answer that question normally and naturally. "I live in a large 3-bedroom apartment." Anyway, we'll have a look at that topic in, I believe, our lesson 2 next time. Another big problem is going off topic, not just like we did then, where you add a bit of information there about your parents. Okay, you could put that in there. It wouldn't be a bad thing, but going further and further and further off topic. So another common question is this question kind of thing: what do you like? So in this situation, what do you like to do in your hometown? Many students will say something like this: "There are many things that I like to do in my hometown. People can go swimming and spend time in the beautiful beach or lie in the sunshine. They can also eat some wonderful seafood, or they can visit Liaodong Island, a wonderful historical tourist attraction about China's past." Now, first of all, we're starting to talk about a completely different question. What can a tourist do in your hometown? Secondly, it sounds very memorized. And thirdly, that's probably not what you like to do. Even if you live in Weihai and you love going to this historical tourist attraction, you probably don't do that every week. What most people do in their hometown, in their free time, is go to a cafe, restaurant, or shopping mall and hang out with their friends. If that's what you like to do, that's the answer to that question. What do you like to do in your hometown? I don't really do anything special in my hometown. I just hang out with my friends, usually at the local shopping mall or sitting in a cafe. If that's the truth, that's the answer. So don't start going off a different topic, especially when it's about what you like. Don't talk about other people. Okay, another common mistake is starting and finishing with the exact same phrase. So for this question, what new hobbies would you like to try? The most common mistake here would be, I would like to try windsurfing, a wonderful sport where you stand on a board and hold the sail on the water. This is a very interesting sport, water sport, and because I love the water, this would be a really good new sport for me to try. So I would like to learn how to go windsurfing. That bit at the end, so I would like to learn how to go windsurfing, pretty much sounds the same as what you said at the very beginning. And it takes you 2 to 4 seconds to say that. If you do that for 15 or 20 questions, you're wasting 30 or 40 seconds or more of the IELTS exam. And people do that. They use that all the time. Now, the main problem is your vocabulary is not new, your grammar is not new, and it's not something we do in native English speaking. Now, if you've given a 5-minute speech, then yes, you might say that at the end, but not for a 20-second answer. So don't waste your time. Just finish with a normal sentence. A lot of students do ask me, how do I finish this though? Well, you say, oh, I'd like to try windsurfing because I love the water and I think it would be really cool to be able to fly across the water on a windsurf. That's the end of my answer, the last thing I said in that sentence. And it shows you're a confident speaker as well. Okay, this is sometimes people might think talking too long. Surely talking a long time is a good thing. Now, again, we're going to talk about the length of questions in later classes, but the thing you need to remember is talking too long can waste your time, especially if it's not on the right topic or it's not adding good grammar and vocabulary to the question. For a lot of questions, you don't need a lot of good grammar and vocabulary. You just need to answer the question. So for this question, what's your major? I don't want to hear people saying, I studied a Bachelor of Business and my major is marketing. Marketing is a wonderful subject because in marketing, we get to learn about some creative ways that companies advertise their products. And hopefully one day I can work in a company making advertisements because this would be fun and interesting and I can earn a good salary. Now, if that's your answer, I'm sorry, that's a terrible answer because you're not answering the question properly. And if you do that, you lose marks. You don't get a better score because it's just a silly thing to do. You don't do that when you go to America or England or Australia. That's not how people talk. You would just say, oh, I study business and my major is marketing. If they want to ask what's the good thing about it, they will ask that question later. So for now, just answer the question. Okay? You might add a little bit of information, but you don't go talking and talking and talking and talking. So that's something we'll spend a bit of time on that in a future lesson because that is a big problem for a lot of students. How long is a good answer? Okay, now that brings us to the end of this video. And of course, at this point, I'm sure some of you are thinking, wow, he speaks way too fast and I don't understand anything he says. But again, we should be putting some subtitles up for those people that need that. Secondly, if you do have questions or if there's something you want me to focus on in a future video, please contact us. There's our QR code for our Weixin or our WeChat. And of course, there is our Zhang Laoshe, my wife's phone number. Her or one of our other staff would answer that phone. And if you have a question, you can send it to them or ask them, and then they will send it to me. And what I hope to do is at the end of this series of 10 speaking classes is do another video answering all of those questions. So thank you very much, everyone. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I hope you really enjoyed this video. Now, I will take a break and hopefully see you again shortly for our next video. Thank you very much and have a good day.